What's good, y'all? You know who it is. It's your boy, Big Tank Hank, coming at you with another live stream. And today we got a very special guest. Very special guest. You know, very often we'll bring up the subject on fish clubs and things of that nature in your local area, and me speaking on how we really don't have fish clubs in my area. I have a better club, Houston area, better club that started on Facebook that I belong to, that we're gonna actually start having um, in-person meetings. But as a whole, that's a new thing here. So our guest today is Wiley Peck, Sacramento Aquarium Society president. So we probably have some friends on here that actually belong to their society. And if anybody have any questions or anything like that for him, hey, bring them, bring them, bring them. We want to get as much knowledge as we can, because I feel this is very, very interesting. And I'm glad that he decided to come and bring him up. Wiley Peck, sir, how you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Nice to meet y'all.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Let me
thank
know
you.
if you have any problems seeing me. My bright lights kind of
Oh no, you good. It's
wash
actually a
me out
little
a little bit.
it's a little dimmer than it was earlier. So now you good, you good.
Yeah, I think I turned 3 more lights off in the room. I have a lot of lights in this room, so.
Okay. Let me see. Scroll. Let's see who all we got in the house. Ricky De Hoyos. Hello, sir. Natural Aquariums. Thank you for being in. Color Guppies. Rose Aquatics. What's happening, man? Where you been? Glad you could come through and visit. Hey, now. Dave's Aquarium Thaws. Off the hook. Off outdoors. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Wiley saying hello from the chat. Thank y'all. We got them coming in slowly but surely, but they are on their way. Sir, ACA convention coming back to Sacramento.
So ACA was originally scheduled for 2020 in Sacramento. Of course, COVID decided to get in our way, and we did cancel. We are currently in negotiations to possibly host in 2023. I am currently talking with club people to make sure that I have the necessary interest amongst our people to take on the task before I commit to it. If I get that commitment from my people, then I will commit to ACA for 2023. So I should have an answer for sure by the end of next month. But as of right now, if the stars align, yes, 2023. But I don't want to give an absolute commitment to that yet until I know for sure. But as of right now, if we do, it will be 2023.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Scary Terry, welcome in. So, Mr. Peck, introduce yourself. Give a little background to those. Fish Tropics, what's going on? Those in the chat who don't know who you are.
So I'm Wiley. That's me. I've been the president of the Sacramento Aquarium Society for the last 2 years. I don't know. Time blurs together. I've been in the hobby most of my life. I grew up in the greater Sacramento area. If you guys know the area, we have 2 major rivers going through Sacramento, the Sacramento and the American River, both of which combine and then dump into the ocean in San Francisco, which is, about an hour and a half from where I'm at. So I've grown up here on the Delta. I grew up catching everything that I could catch in the water. So I used to have tanks with where I'd go out and catch the things I wasn't supposed to catch and keeping them. Things like rainbow trout and bass and bluegill and such. I used to catch them and keep them in tanks for a little while and then let them go again. I was always good, never killed them, always let them go again. But I would catch them and watch them, and I used to get them like real small and then let them go after a couple weeks, just to have fun with them. And um, we used to have big fishing competitions and stuff like that. We had an annual festival in the town I lived in called Rio Vista. We had the Bass Derby every year, so we'd have fishermen from around the world come in and have big fishing competitions. We'd have big crayfish eating competitions. We had our annual crawdad festival in the sister town called Ileton, where we used to go out and catch crayfish and then go and cook them in our own houses. I mean, it was we'd have block parties where all the kids would get together and go out and catch crayfish and then go and cook them ourselves. And it was really fun, and I've always really enjoyed anything water related. So I always grew up with a tank or two in the house. And then my teenage years hit, and I lost touch with the hobby up until my late 20s. And then, I grew up a little bit and stopped being a wild child and started to have a real life again. And then I got a couple tanks here and there. And then somewhere in my mid 30s, the spark hit again, and I got a tank, and I fell in love, and that led to a bigger tank, and then that led to a bigger tank, and then I met my now current wife, and she made the mistake of saying, "Sure, hun, do what you want," and yeah, that led to a lot of tanks. Um, so when I bought this house, one of the very first things I did was bought a saltwater tank because I'd never done saltwater before. So I'm like, okay, I wanted to saltwater tank. So a buddy of mine works at PetSmart, and one of his friends or customers had mentioned that she was upgrading to a big saltwater tank, and she had a 30-gallon BioCube that she wanted to get rid of and wanted to sell it for, I think it was $100. So I jumped on it because all in one sounds much easier than, doing the piecemeal thing. And
Right.
so that was my foray into getting back into fish tanks other than a 30-gallon that I had. And never turned back. And so I now have, in this room that I'm sitting in right now, which is literally a 12 by 12 square office, I have this 85-gallon that you guys can all see with the rainbows over my shoulder, another 55-gallon that's back there with my angels and discus and tetras and other oddball things, and another little tank over there that's just breeding big ram's horn snails. And then there's another tank over here that you can barely see that's full of about 300 multifasciatus. That's just this room. It has gotten a little out of hand. My dining room has a 125-gallon tank that has a 12-inch Fajaka puffer named Potato. And the giant ram's horn snails are there purely for Potato's benefit because Potato eats a lot. Then I have in my living room, I have a little 3-gallon oval with a pair of pea puffers, and they live in that thing because they used to live in this big tank that has all the rainbows until they became homicidal maniacs, and so they got pulled out of there and they got their own little 3-gallon. I used to have about a dozen breeding hillstream loaches in there, and they killed all but 3 of my Hillstream loaches. So they got pulled out. They're mean little suckers, and they get to live by themselves. And then I recently, at one of my club auctions, swap meets, got hold of one of those 16-gallon bi-orb ball. It's a big old ball aquarium. And so I'm in the process of turning that into a shrimp tank, some sort of fancy shrimps. I don't know what I'm going to put in it yet, but something fancy and pretty. And then out on my back patio, I have a 500-gallon pond that has shabunkins, comet goldfish, and koi. It's fed by a 200-gallon filtration system that breeds crayfish, also for potatoes feeding pleasure, and Endler guppies. And those are in there mostly for cleanup crew for Potato's tank, because Potato eats like a slob. And so I have to constantly add Endlers into the tank to kind of be his cleanup crew. But once they get to a certain size, he likes to chase them and will eat them if he catches them. So once they grow to too big, he considers them food. So I kind of constantly have to kind of replenish the stock. So yeah, he's so entertaining though that he's sort of like a dog, and he begs when you walk in the room. He follows you back and forth. Awesome fish. I highly recommend a puffer fish to anybody who has the ability to keep one. Just make sure you have the ability to keep one. That's the main thing. They do have big needs, but they're definitely worth it. But yeah, that's all my fish, and that's my story. But yeah, so that same friend who helped me get the saltwater tank introduced me to the club 6 years ago, and I started going to the meetings, and it completely changed my world when it came to fish tanks. Up until then, I didn't realize, what the hobby really was. I was nothing beyond the PetSmart world of what the hobby was. And now it's a whole new thing. The people I talk to on a daily basis are professors at Sac State and master breeders. And, I'm active in the conservation, circles of the local salmon populations and dealing with the hatcheries. And, somebody I consider a good friend is currently down in South America at one of the conservations at the Amazon, what is it? One of the Amazon conservations, catching rare species and doing things like that. I mean, it's totally changed my perspective of what this hobby is really about. And this hobby is not about, yes, it's about pretty things and entertainment in a way and stuff like that, but it's also about making this planet better than we found it and rolling back some of the destruction that we've done. There's species of fish in this tank right here, species of rainbows that are next to impossible to actually find in the wild. Not that you can't, but there's probably more of them in the fish tanks of the world than there are in the actual wild anymore.
That's crazy.
And you think about those kinds of things, and that's because of us, not because of them. They haven't been the cause of their wipeouts. It's because what we're doing to the world. And so it's important. It's changed how I look at things. We have speakers come in every month at our club and talk about the science of keeping these creatures alive. And that's a big deal. And so it's totally changed. And so I went from just going to the meetings every month and buying a few fish at the auctions and stuff to stepping up and joining on the board. And now I'm the president, and I've been for a couple of years and probably will be for a couple more years. And, looking at hosting the ACA and, stepping beyond just a fish tank in my living room. And one thing I noticed when I joined the club was when I looked around the room, everybody was older than me. And so the very first thing I went was, okay, it's time to bring people younger than me into this hobby. We need to reach out and find the next generation, because they're the ones that are going to truly be the next step. Because once everybody that's older than me and my age starts aging out of this hobby, somebody's got to take up the mantle. And so my big goal is, for the last 2 years, is reaching out, spreading our influence from not doing, we've just been our club. We've been doing the same thing, is to, branch out into social media, do a lot more YouTube based stuff. I moved our club online so that all our meetings were, recorded and things to that nature, to try to bring our message and the important part of our hobby to everyone else.
Good deal. Good deal. So what does being president look like?
Well, I mean, I think it's really hard to say right now. COVID has changed a lot from what it was originally going to be. When I agreed to be president, I was doing it more as a favor for the person who was the president at the time. I was on the board, but the person that was president at the time, Rich Byerly, was ramping up for ACA, and he didn't want to balance being the president and balance doing the ACA convention at the same time. That was a big, heavy load. So I agreed to be the president while he was doing ACA, which was really no big deal, and then 6 months later, COVID happened, and the ACA things kind of fell apart due to, shutdowns and all that other fun stuff. So as that was all happening, I had to stop and go, okay, well, how do I keep something that's been, for the last 65 years, been an in-person social club going, especially when, 60% of our member base is, older and doesn't know how to use the technology, or is just technology averse and things to that nature. And so for 1 month, we didn't do really much of anything other than try to figure it out. And it, luckily, we had enough strong people on the board and stuff like that, that we were able to come up with a plan pretty quickly. And luckily I had Michael Pohl of Bay Area Aquatics. I'm sure some of you have heard of him or seen his YouTube channel, happened to be in the club. And so I was able to reach out to him and say, okay, what do we need to do to transition to an online presence where we can continue to do monthly meetings, live streamed, with a Q&A kind of thing, so we can at least continue to have a monthly interaction with our member base. And at that time, we all thought, this is going to be like a 2-3 month thing, right? And when COVID first hit, we didn't think it was going to be that long. And so we were able to, after, with the 1 month gap, we went, okay, well, we have 3 or 4 members that have massive fish rooms. And I mean massive. I mean, Richard Byerly, the same person I was just talking about that was doing the ACA, he's got an entire warehouse on his property that's nothing but fish room. I mean, just absolutely massive. He's got a 2,000, 3,000 gallon tomato tub pond that's got, you can swim in it kind of thing. I highly recommend, if you guys haven't, go look at some of our videos, especially those first 3 or 4 where we do tours of those. There's like 145,000 views or something like that. The first like 3 went super viral. We went from like 95 members to well over 1,000 in like our first 8 months. Like we blew up like crazy. We were able to monetize within our first year, I think it was. But so luckily, between that and the fact that we had a couple of members like him, and such, we were able to line up our first like 3 or 4 months of meetings, which gave us the ability to figure out a longer term plan if things didn't move back. So with the help of the board and a couple other members, and then Eric, that he is the gentleman who lines up our speakers normally, we were able to line up speakers for online meetings through the end of the year. So we made that transition. So basically how it works for us as a club is the first Saturday of every month, we have our general meeting, which goes 2 to 3 hours. Usually it's a online hour-long presentation, give or take, and then an hour-ish of Q&A. If we were in person, it would be an hour-ish presentation with Q&A at the end or during, and then we would have a 2-hour auction, and then chit-chatty time until Roundtable kicked us out the door. It's just how it usually works. So we didn't lose a whole lot of time, but we did lose the auction, unfortunately, which was actually really hard for us because as a club, that was our revenue stream. We took a cut of everything sold at auction. So we had to come up with alternative ways of paying for speakers and different things that the club incurred. We are a nonprofit. We do have to pay taxes every year and all our government fees and bank accounts and all the other fun things that come along with being in a real nonprofit. We are a 503c 2 or 3, one of those things. You have to ask the lawyer guy. So because there's so much involved, that was my big thing from the beginning. Once we figured out how we were going to do meetings, I was then like, okay, how do we make money? We're a nonprofit. We're not worried about making a ton of money, but I need to make sure that we're making some money. And I can guarantee you that Richard Byerly has spoken lots of places. Did my Alexa just talk? It did. I'm sorry. Shush, Alexa. Okay. I just saw that Natural Aquariums mentioned Richard in chat. Richard has spoken many, 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 many places. He is huge in the hobby in general. So I'm sure if any of you guys went and watched his tour video, you'd be like, hey, I know that guy. He's like one of those type of people in the hobby. So, but anyways, oh, look, it must be 9 o'clock. All my lights turned off. So back to the making money scene. So that was my biggest, what am I going to do thing when it came time. So I immediately went, okay, where can I cut our costs? So luckily, one of our biggest costs is speakers. Well, we didn't have speakers anymore. We weren't flying people out anymore. We weren't putting people up in hotel rooms anymore. So we cut all those costs out almost instantly. But we were still going to be paying speakers to speak for us. So we, or at least that was a potential, right? Plus, there was, a little bit more requirements for the streaming and the equipment and things like that. So I instantly went online and made us a Teespring store and made us some different T-shirts. I made us masks. I made us a bunch of different things that we could sell that way. I also, what we used to do with our local fish stores is we would have partnerships with them where they would give us a certain number of gift cards per year. And we would raffle those off at our monthly meetings. So instead of doing that, I started raffling them off to people who would buy club memberships or renew their memberships. And so by doing that, it would be an incentive for people to renew or join the club. And so by doing that, we maintained and actually doubled the number of people that were joining or renewing the club every month. So we increased our membership revenue stream actually during COVID than we did before COVID. So that helped us maintain a revenue stream that kept us from the drop off that we would have had if we had not done that. So we actually managed as a club to not only not lose money, but we have managed to maintain and make money the entire time through COVID. And so now that we're coming out of the lockdown, COVID is unfortunately still a thing, but the lockdowns have come out and we're able to move back into in-person meetings again. We are in a position to not only go back to where we were before, but now we have the money to, one, be able to do ACA, hopefully in 2023, but now bring in speakers and not have to worry about, well, we lost a bunch of money during COVID. How are we going to be able to afford it? Because we have no loss over that stretch. And then once lockdown started easing, we started doing big swap meets. So we were able to bring in all the people that used to be able to do auctions. We just started bringing everybody together in a field. Basically, we have a member who has a big, like 10-acre property in town, and just started bringing everybody together for big swap meets, where everybody could just keep their booths apart from each other, and it was all outdoors, and those worked out really well for us too. It wasn't a lot of money for the club, but it was a great community thing for the club. And that's, was the big thing is, I didn't want to lose that sense of community. We've been a community, for 60 years. We were founded in 1952, and we've been incorporated as a nonprofit since the 60s, somewhere in there. So it was pretty important for me for the club to not lose identity. And I had about 15 different clubs across the states reach out to me over those first few months asking how we were doing meetings and looking for advice. And we helped several clubs get their online meetings up and running so that they could kind of copy us so that they could keep going through everything. So I think we did a pretty good job of maintaining. And so even to this day now, my daily presidential duty, because I try to at least put 30 minutes of my day towards presidential duties, is usually answering emails about, I have this fish, I need a home for it, who do I call? And or answering emails from different members on stuff like that, or sponsorships, or answering messages on Facebook. Our Facebook group has, I think it's 3,000 members now or something silly like that. And so we, I get a lot of messages every day. So if you message me and I don't answer, it's not that I'm ignoring you, because I also work 50 hours a week and I'm a full-time student. So,
man.
Yeah, it's sometimes it'll be a day or two before I get back to you.
And I never even thought about the aspect of
Yeah.
people messaging you about, hey, need a surrender here, or I mean, that like never entered my mind as even being a scenario. I mean, and but it makes sense. It makes sense. I just never thought about it. And yeah, y'all, I would say that was very, very good, man, the way that y'all were able to hold on like that and to be a light in a sense, for other societies to pattern themselves, to be able to hold on like that and to have the um insight, stick to itiveness. I mean, all of those things, dude. That's crazy. And I mean, I want to swap meet. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I want to be able to be a part of something like that. What do you see when you start doing the in persons? What's going on, Melvin? You start doing the in persons. Uh yeah, I guess I can ask this question. What is there any new direction? Any specific types of people in the hobby? Am I saying this right? That you guys want to bring to the club, to be experienced?
I really, really, really want to get more kids involved. I think that there's something special about the fascination that kids have with animals that is an untapped potential. When I was a kid, you know, that playing in the creeks, we talked about it a little bit earlier before we were on camera and stuff. There was just a fascination with chasing the frogs. I told you about how the first time I ever saw a dragonfly nymph, it scared the daylights out of me. I thought it was going to eat me. And then once I found out what it was, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was constantly looking for them. But, I was in 4-H. I was a Boy Scout. I think, though, there's a potential to trigger a fascination there that is awesome. And I think that there's not enough outreach from a lot of the local clubs to those groups. I think that those groups have been kind of forgotten in our technology age. Between technology taking over and the scandals and all those different things, the 4-H's and the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and there was, all the other little scout type clubs that existed when we were kids and our parents were kids have all just kind of gone by the wayside. And I think that is a untapped resource in both directions, because I remember when I was a Cub Scout, there was badges that had to do with fish and nature and stuff like that. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to impart knowledge and also spark an interest. And same with the 4-H. It literally 4-H is about raising animals and nurturing animals. So I think that is what my goal is going to be once we get back to some semblance of normalcy, is to try to build a bridge between our hobby, at least our club, and the local whatever's left of those those Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and 4-H's and whatever the other equivalents are that still exist. It's been so long since I've interacted with any of those things that I don't just know. And we actually have several nature preserves along the rivers here that I'm going to try to reach out to and see if we as a society can donate to them and, interact within them that are directly related to the local rivers and everything, and see if we can't build a relationship to make our club a presence in what we do on the conservation side as much as we are on the fish in a box side.
Yeah, that'll be very cool. 'Cause I can remember my Cub Scout days and all of that. Oh man, it's the kids now. I mean, it's gonna be a. I don't want to speak any negative into it, but I'm gonna use. It's gonna be hard. Like nowadays, you're gonna have to have all hands on deck. I mean, starting with little bitty kids, just the stirring up that hidden, you know, intrigue that it's still there in them. The same thing that had us doing all of those things and wanting to, you know, it's got to be all hands on deck, man. That's gonna be, I mean, a super thing to see happen. And I mean, you stirred me a little bit with that because I've not even thought about that aspect, of the kids, and I really haven't. That'll be beautiful, man. That'll be beautiful.
My grandson is 18 months, give or take. November, 19 months, and his favorite thing is to go in the backyard. I have a 300-gallon Rubbermaid stock pond that I have turtles in, and he loves to go out there and stick his finger in the pond and splash in the pond and play with the turtles and stuff like that. And he loves going and moving his finger around on the tank and making Potato the puffer follow his finger and all that kind of stuff. He's already at 18 months interacting with the fish. Now I have to make him stop smacking the tank, but it's still one of those things where there's already at 18 months a fascination with the animals in the house. He likes the cats, he likes the dogs, he loves the fish. There's so much there, and almost everybody to a person in our hobby that you talk to was like that when they were a kid. Nobody was like, I hated animals and then one day I loved to fish. All of us were like that when we were kids, almost to a person. We were in a creek somewhere, we were playing in the ocean somewhere, we were in the mud, it's just kind of our nature. And the current environment almost kind of discourages that in such a way where we just kind of beat it out of them. And I want to reverse that as much as I can. So my house is a zoo. I got dogs and cats and turtles and fish and a Fahaka puffer this big that'll take your finger off, but will also give you a kiss if you kiss the tank. So
yeah. I have a grandbaby on the way. We just found out the little girl.
Congratulations.
And my plans, with this hobby already, in here is already rolling,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just waiting for the little feet to hit the ground and little hands to hit the tank. But
yeah,
most definitely.
Yeah. So it's like I said earlier, when I joined the club, there's so much to learn from the older generation, but we got to get the younger generation in there to learn it. And so I'm trying really hard to bring the two together. And that's why I'm like, working with Michael from the Bay Area Aquatics to kind of bring the technology into the club. Because if you bring the technology, the kids will follow and the younger generation will follow.
Yeah.
And, I think having his influence, because, he's a 20-something, having his influence has greatly helped bring 20 somethings and youngers in. We had a family that came in because of him, and there's like 5 kids in that family, and they're all now fish freaks, and they have like, when they joined, they had like 2 tanks. Now they got like 20 and 400 fish. And that's what I want to grab and multiply. I want them like gremlins. I want to like get them wet and make millions of them.
No.
Because that's what the hobby needs. Because that's how not only will the hobby survive, but the fish will survive. So
yeah, okay.
That's
So
important.
with that, who? No, because I want to touch on this. People, I'm gonna let y'all know ahead of the game. We talked about this, backstage, and I want to get it in before we get over here. Your pet peeves as far as fish that should not be in the hobby. I want your thoughts on that.
Well, it's not necessarily that they shouldn't be in they shouldn't be in the hobby, but if they're going to be in the hobby, they should be, I think they should be licensed. And not necessarily because people shouldn't have them, but because they deserve to be kept by people that are capable of keeping them in conditions that they deserve to be kept in. The big 3 for me, and there are more beyond this, but 4. That's a good one. Fish Tropic. Yeah, that one is the one I take in more than any other for sure. But the biggest one that we have a problem with here in California, I don't know about other places, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere, is the pacu. I get contacted once a month about somebody who's got a 18-inch pacu in a 30-gallon tank, and they can't keep it no more because their kid went away to college and they don't know what to do with it. Like I have a place to put an 18-inch pacu. Like I'm not Ohio Fish Rescue. I'm sorry, and I don't know anybody who is other than Ohio Fish Rescue. And I'm not driving it to Ohio. As awesome as those guys are, I don't think they can take any more pacu either. The second one is red-tailed cats. Read my mind, which is my personal favorite fish. I think red-tailed cats have one of the most awesome profile of any fish in the hobby. I won't lie, I have owned a red-tailed cat. It's a fish I bought before I knew better. And I accidentally killed it before I knew better. And I'm actually kind of, in a way, glad because I didn't make it suffer through my stupidity of letting it overgrow into something it shouldn't have been. But it is definitely a fish that should not be in the hobby because there's nobody here in the States that can build what it really needs. It's a river cat that needs flowing water, that needs thousands and thousands of gallons. And it's not it's a river cat. It's not a pond cat. And so these people that put them in ponds of any size are not giving it the water flow that it needs. So even though they may have the water volume, they don't have the water movement, which means they're going to be stunted in one form or another. And that's the same with the iridescent shark. They are a channel cat. They need flow. And so that's my third big one. All 3 of those fish are river fish. They're not lake fish. And so they need movement. And so when you put them in swimming pool ponds, you are still not giving them what they need as a species, which is movement. And so, like even the Ohio Fish Rescue guys who have them in that pool, they've put great big water, power heads in there to keep the flow moving through that thing to try to simulate water flow. Even that is not as much as any of those fish that are in that thing would have in nature, but they're doing the best they can. And that's the most you can ask for, but none of the fish that they have in that tank really should be in the hobby, because we can't as humans simulate the Amazon River.
Yeah.
Or the Nile or the Mississippi or any of the other waterways that those fish come from, because they all come from rivers that these fish don't deserve to be taken from. And, they're not lake fish. Because one of the things that make these fish so big is the fact that they've been, natural selection muscles from fighting currents in rivers, and so it's so annoying to walk into my local fish store and there's a tank full of red-tailed cats that are this big. And I thought it was really cool, 10 years ago when I didn't know better, and I went and bought one because I thought it was the most gorgeous thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah, they are that when they're little.
Oh, especially when they're little. They're so cute. Oh, they're so cute. But, now that I know better, you know what I do? I go buy a stuffed one. I bought a stuffed one the other day. When I was in Monterey, I went into this little shop and they had a stuffed red-tailed cat, and I bought that because it's ridiculous that we're allowing fish that don't need to be banned to be banned. And then you can go buy a pacu that can be the size of a car tire to be sold to people that should not even own a goldfish.
Yeah.
It just baffles me that we're so backwards when it comes to our laws on these animals. You can go get a goldfish and win it at a fair, and the goldfish can become bigger than most of the dogs in our country. And yet pacus are like a dime a dozen, and I don't get it.
I mean, I really, really like this fish because I like the fish that has its profile, whether very small or large. But Arapaima, man, you talking about
The torpedo.
Yeah, you're talking about not being able to build what's needed.
Yeah.
How is that even?
Yeah. But you're literally talking about a fish that is genetically designed for river current. And I think they're kind of goofy looking. They're like clown knives. I think they're the weirdest looking thing in the world. But
I like clown knives.
Yeah, well, they're similar shapes. I get it. But they're just not built for it. So I don't. And even clown knives are one of those things where, you have to have, 300 gallons because you buy them, they're this big and then they get this big. And nobody in the fish store tells you these things are going to get massive because all they care about is selling them. They don't care about taking care of them. Even the best fish stores, we have a couple in town that I consider really good fish stores, will still sell you stuff they should not be selling you. And they'll kind of say, hey, just so you know, that's going to get really big. And that's like the extent of what they say. And I'm like,
no picture painted for you. Like,
yeah, I mean, are you going to tell them what really big really means? It means huge. Like, like huge, like monster, like minimum 200 gallons.
In my early, we have those stories. I had a 75 tall. Basically, it was like a cube. I had a pacu, a clown knife, and an Oscar in it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let's just say I didn't have them all in there long, together. Only three
Yeah.
fish. Only three fish I had, and I was like, hey, well, it's gonna be all right. No,
Not at all, especially.
no. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Pacu went
like,
first.
yeah.
He left first.
Paku are just, I mean, I don't even get the appeal. Paku, people want Paku because they're a poor man's piranha. They
That's
have,
it. Yeah, that's
yeah.
basically it. Yeah.
And they're ugly as sin. You have to get some weird morph to get like a cool effect from them. They got to be some weird red belly or long fin or something like that. But beyond that, they're kind of just big round things. I mean, at least silver dollars are like shimmery and they're the same body shape, just smaller. Piranhas at least are kind of entertaining because they're schooling and such. Um, Clown knives, at least are kind of like an alien, right? So I kind of get why they're appealing and they got the cool fin and all that kind of stuff.
And the backward swim,
Oscars,
you can't
yeah.
beat it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And Oscars are gorgeous. I definitely get the appeal of Oscars. In fact, that's one of my next goals is I want to put a big rack in my garage and get a 125 and get like 3 nice tiger Oscars. But I just don't get the Paku thing. I don't get it at all because it's always, I'd say the last 4 Paku that we took in, all of them were my kid's gone to college and now I don't know what to do with this fish, which means they bought it for their 10-year-old kid or something. And they've all been in tanks that are way too small for them. I think the biggest one I saw was a 75 gallon and all the fish were 12 inches plus. And it's just like, I just don't get why did you buy your kid this fish? Why?
The kid wanted it and lack of education.
Well, and lack of parents being willing to say no. It's, I don't know. I just really wish, and because people then turn around and let this stuff go in the wild, then the regulators are going to, are freaking out over invasive species because of this kind of behavior. And then we're going to end up having our hobby regulated over these things in ways that it shouldn't be regulated. So we're just going to have a continuation of things that don't need to be regulated becoming regulated, and the things that need to be regulated are still going to run rampant. So because they keep finding, carp species in our rivers, instead of regulating the goldfish market, they're going to regulate other species that don't need to be regulated.
Yeah.
They need to stop letting carnivals give away comets as prizes, for example. But they're not going to stop that practice. They're going to stop some other, species that really have no bearance on anything. Oxalotls will get banned in another state or something dumb like that because of, different things. And so people need to stop letting things go where they shouldn't be, and people need to stop buying fish they shouldn't buy, I guess is what it really comes down to, because both of those things are a really big problem. We have a really big problem in California with invasive turtles, invasive snails, invasive mussels, and carp. And there's a few other things too, but those are the big ones. We have red-eared slider turtles, which are native to Carolinas, and they're more prolific here than our native turtle. We only have one native turtle in California, and it's an endangered species. And red-eared sliders, you can go kick down the street; they're everywhere. Because they're prolific in the hobby, and people buy them for their kids, keep them for 6 months, and then let them go in the creek.
And the red-eared slider was done somewhat like the comet goldfish, at certain points in time. I was forever seeing, oh, the cute little baby turtle.
Yep.
I've had turtles, musk turtles, I've had tortoises, I've had all kinds, but I mean, I caught them out, in the wild, and they were already pretty good size. So I never understood. I'm like, who started the drive on getting these little bitty turtles? And I mean, you don't see them that little in the wild.
Yeah, no, they're so in California. See, I don't know the laws outside of California. So in California, it's illegal to sell them for anything other than educational purposes under 3 inches in wide. But you can go in almost any pet store and buy them that small, because all you got to do is claim it's for educational purposes, and they'll sell it to you. So you get all these parents that are homeschooling, and they can just go in and buy them that small. And then they go home and they set up their 20-gallon tank and buy the little home turtle kits, set them up. Then they, a year down the road, suddenly they're 5 inches in diameter. They're too big for those tanks. And then they let them go in the local pond park, pond fountain or whatever. And suddenly they're everywhere. And it's, a real problem. I have 5 out back in my 300-gallon, and all of them were turned in through the club. Somebody reached out to the club saying, I need to turn these in. Where do I take them? And we have a turtle rescue here in town, but they have thousands of them in amongst their members. I, in good conscience, can't tell them to go take them anywhere else because they're an invasive species. So if I told them to go to the river, I'd be telling them to do something illegal. So I take them in and then hold on to them until somebody turns up and says, hey, I'm looking for a turtle. And then I, adopt them out, kind of thing. But it's just like the fish, somebody reaches out and I'm like, yep, I'll take it in and take in the fish until I find it a home. And so that's a lot of what we do in the club is we take in, these people that are moving. I'm moving and I need to get rid of these fish. And so we take them in, and if they're sick, we treat them, and then we pass them on or sell them, to, members of the club, and use the money to pay for our next speaker or, whatever the case may be. Do a lot of that kind of stuff. Probably 2-3 times a month we're out picking up donations or drop-offs or rescues or, whatever the case may be. And too many pacus. Unfortunately.
Well, maybe, they say pacus taste good. Maybe we need to get somebody to, start preparing something. Let them get into the restaurant, business. And maybe we can thin them out.
Fish fry.
Yeah, we can thin them out a little bit. That is crazy. I have a question for you and for the chat. Now, speaking of the turtles, in Texas, I mean, I don't know if I'm just not going to the right places, or you have to go to a herp type store, but like, are there still actual pet stores in existence? Because I've not seen. Now you have your LFS is your fish store who may have turtles and crawfish, maybe a few lizards in there, but just outright pet store. Well, no. Now that I think about it, not mom and pops, but your Petcos and stuff are technically, they would have that title, I guess, because they have your hamsters and your guinea pigs.
Well, I mean, we have all your big ones, right? Your Petco, your PetSmart, your Pet Club. Those are the big 3 that we have, at least here in California. Then we have a chain. I don't know if it's a chain. There's two of them. I don't know if there's more of them outside of our area that are just reptiles. And then we have a whole bunch of mom and pop aquarium or fish stores. But there is in a couple of the suburbs. I call them suburbs, but they're towns that aren't actually attached to Sacramento. There are a few multi-animal species stores. I've never visited any of them, and I don't know if they are part of a chain that I'm just not aware of. Honestly, I don't go in them all that often. I went into PetSmart near me 2 days ago because I needed a hydrometer for a science test. I had to do a test for my science class, and I couldn't find my hydrometer, and it was an emergency. So I ran over to PetSmart and grabbed a hydrometer. But I hadn't been in one of those in a really long time, because like when I need dog food and cat food, I usually just grab it at the grocery store when I'm there. And then beyond that, I usually go to our partner stores for the club. I'll go into those when I need fish tank supplies. Any fish I ever need, I actually get them from other club members. I have not purchased a fish from a store in years. If I need a fish, a plant, or anything like that, I get them through other members. I reach out to them and, kind of put out the call. Hey, I'm looking for platinum angels. I'm looking for black rams, or, whatever the case may be. We have so many members and so many breeders and everything in the club that it is very rare for me to need to actually hunt for stuff. And so I very rarely actually have to go to a store for anything. It happens occasionally, but it's not very common. And I haven't bought anything from a store in a few years, except for my red rainbows, but that was 3-4 years ago. As for I don't know. Beyond the big chains, there's not a whole lot of big pet stores. Part of that is, though, California banned the sale of cats and dogs and a couple other things in stores a long time ago. So you can't go to a store and buy a cat or a dog here in California anymore. And that killed pet store trade a long time ago here.
Yeah, I can see that. Because I can remember walking, like you walk in the front door and it was pets.
Yep.
I remember those days.
When I was a kid, I remember going to the mall, and there's a pet store in the mall, and you could go play with the puppies, right inside the door. So now here, all the PetSmarts have adoptable kittens in them.
Yeah.
But no adoptable dogs, but just kittens. But yeah, you can't buy. I don't even think you can buy rabbits in a pet store anymore. I think you have to go to rabbits and like chickens and ducks. You have to go to like the Tractor Supply type stores, the beat stores for rabbits, and chickens and ducks, and then
SPCA.
And then you have to go to breeders for all your dogs and cats but you can still get your exotic birds and stuff through the pet marts and hamsters and stuff like that. So, now as for what species of rainbows I have in here, I do not know scientific names at all. So, there's Persian, I don't know, the red ones. There's some turquoise in here. There's some Bosmani in here. There's, I don't know. If Larry Schenkel was here, or he would go, that's that one, and that's that one, and that's that one. They're pretty colored ones. That's best I can tell you. I am the absolute worst at scientific names. My biggest problem is I work in IT and I'm a programmer, and I'm lucky I can remember code, let alone Latin. There's 6 species in here, 7 species in here, as well as some 2 species of reticulated hill stream loaches, 1 really fat albino bushy nose pleco, and 1 little tiger stripe pleco thing. This is an oddball size tank. It's 3.5 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and 12 inches deep, roughly. It was custom built to fit in a nook in a house that was built in the 70s. And then the house was getting remodeled. It was one of my clients' houses, and they were going to throw it out. And so when they were throwing it out, I conveniently threw it out into my backseat of my car, and it came home with me. I custom did the background. Here, let me turn the light back on for it. If I can get my hand back there. I custom did the background. Let's bring my camera here. See if I can point my camera at it. So I custom did the background. There's the big albino bushy nose pleco, if you can see him there. And so the background was done with a spray foam. So it was laying on its back. I got 2 big sheets of egg crate cut down the middle so that I could do it in 2 sheets because there's a big glass brace in the middle. It was done with spray foam. First, I did these skulls. I don't know if you can see the skulls. Camera turn this way, guys. So these concrete skulls were done in a jello mold with Quikrete. And those were zip tied to the egg crate. Then I covered the whole thing in spray foam. Then I poured, before that, the PVC pipe was cut and then dremeled to give it the wood grain and then painted brown. But the hill streams have stripped all the paint off of it. So no longer wood grain brown. Now it's white and dirty. So then the whole thing was covered in spray foam, and then 50 pounds of sand was put on it. So as the foam pushed out, the sand pushed in, and it gave it this kind of muddied bank look. So the whole thing is stuck against the wall. It only sticks out about that far from the back wall. All the pipes are caves for them to swim in and out of. Then all the foam I poked holes in so that I could stick the rhizome of the Anubias and the Java fern and Java moss into it. And then this tank has been up and running for 4 years now. Originally, I put no plants in it, and it was full of Malawi cichlids, and they took great advantage of the logs, but they got too big for it pretty quick. And so that's when I decided that I was going to change it up for plants and go with rainbows instead. So I found some videos on YouTube for custom backgrounds. Everything I do, I try to do DIY. And so I found some really cool foam stuff. And so everything was taken from DIY YouTube videos. I love YouTube videos. So the dremeled PVC pipes was taken from that, where they just took a grinder and went down the sides of the pipes with the grinder to make the uneven veins, like as if it was wood, and then put like 4 or 5 layers of different browns on it to give it the 3D effect. and then some lacquer. They just didn't account for, sucky fish, and sucky fish eventually just took it all off. So
Ah,
it looks better, but not as good as it would look if I didn't have, sucker fish in there. But everything else I'm really happy with. I used the black foam, and the beauty of black foam is it turns brown over time. And so it just made it even look more like mud. And so I'm really happy with how it looks, but it looks way better now that 4 years of, algae growth and algae death and algae growth and algae death, and that patina of time has really built up on it. The other thing I did is there's actually nothing for 3 inches on both ends in the back corners, and I took Swiss Tropical, makes styrofoam or foam for mat and filters and stuff like that. I took the entire length from top to bottom is one big filler foam pillar. I cored out the middle, ran PVC full of holes all the way down the middle, and it's one big pre-filter from top to bottom that feeds to canister filter under the bottom. There's one at each end of the tank. So the whole thing is being fed by, well, now it's just one. One end is a small Eheim. What model is this? The small 2213 Eheim at this end, which is the small green one. It's about yay big. So this end's filtration is a pre-filter that's 3.5 feet tall to a small Eheim, which would normally go on maybe like a 30-gallon, 35-gallon. And then the other end is just a power head at the top. So it's literally just basically a giant sponge filter, but it's 3.5 feet tall. So that's all the filtration that this tank has, with the exception of the plants. And it gets a 20% water change when I'm not being lazy. I was watching one of the videos you did with another gentleman, I think it was last month, where he was talking about saltwater. He was a saltwater guy, and he was talking about how you don't get lazy with water changes. I'm like, uh-oh, that's me. Because I definitely...
D from Brooklyn.
Yes, D from Brooklyn, yes. And so I do all my tanks get about 20% once a month, give or take. But I get away with that a little bit more because I'm so heavily planted. So the only one that gets more than that is Potato the Fajaka, and that's because he's an absolute slob, and because they come from super pristine water. So I have to do a little bit more than that. But yeah, that's the whole thing. So I highly recommend anybody that wants to do something fun, go YouTube DIY backgrounds. There's so many options out there now, and just so much fun stuff. Don't just go buy a stick-on back or stuff like that. There's so many fun things to do. It's so much fun to get your hands dirty and make things.
Right.
So
yeah. I wanna make a paladurum like that. I've not pulled the trigger yet, but I'm always looking at videos.
Do you watch Serpa Design? Yeah. Oh, I have sat and watched him for hours on end. Yeah, him and the aquascape pond guys are like my obsession for hours on end. I want an aquascape pond so bad. If any of those guys are watching this or ever watch this, you come find me. I want a pond.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then let's see. Somebody asked about multi-food. So my multis eat the same thing as everybody else. So I have a big bucket of. Let's see. It's pork rind tub. It is. I buy flake bulk on Amazon, just generic bulk, and then I mix in spirulina flake bulk. I usually buy a big can of it, and then whatever samples and stuff get sent to me by whoever sends us samples. So we usually have raffles and auctions and stuff, and the different sponsors and stuff send us raffles, and whatever I happen to win in the raffles each month will just get emptied and dumped in here. And so I don't have a set thing, honestly. There are a few different foods that I will buy to supplement with in my tanks. For example, I really, really, really love this stuff. Wardley shrimp pellets. My multis do love this stuff because it sinks and then disintegrates almost instantly once it sinks. So my multis do love this, especially the fry, because it'll get down right next to the shells and then fall apart. So they don't have to go too far from the shells to get them. So yes. So I do recommend this for multi-fry just because of how you can kind of target it near their shells. So I always have a can of this. It's a pellet that's about, I don't know, yay big. It kind of looks like hamster food, honestly. Stinks, but works. But beyond that, everything else eats flake, pellet, granule, whatever I can get my hands on medley that's in here. My pond is different. My pond has another container like this that is full of assorted mixture of koi and turtle pellets and krill and mealworms and stuff, because my turtles and all my pond fish get the same mixture done the same way. They just get a scoop. Yes, the tattoo behind my ear is USB, and that is exactly why I chose to put it there, because if I ever get to jack in, that's where I want to put. That's why I did that. The other side actually has a power plug, but you can't really see it. It faded really bad. It was green and it glowed in the dark and all that other fun stuff, but someday I'll get it redone. I work in IT. It's one of those. My knuckles also, you can't see the tattoos on my knuckles, but it's all white ink and they say Nerd Rage, but you can almost see the R right there. But yeah, they say Nerd Rage because, I'm a nerd. But yeah, so that is it. This tank gets fed 3 times a day. I have never seen all my fish, beg constantly, but rainbows are vicious eaters. You could feed them every 5 minutes and they would still attack the top of the tank like as if you hadn't fed them for a year. So they have an auto feeder because they will start to kind of get a little nippy at each other if you don't. Everything else I feed myself once a day. At the end of the day, I go around and feed everybody by hand. That gives me the opportunity to check their tanks and make sure everybody's happy and that kind of fun stuff. Make sure nobody's acting up and getting into things they're not supposed to, which actually happens more than you would think with fish, but they do things that are kind of a little funny. So
and it's hard for us to teach them otherwise, right?
yeah. I'm trying, but it doesn't work.
So we've hit the hour mark. Well, a little over, but do you have anything, like a special message, anything that you yourself like to put out there? Any information on upcoming things with the Aquarium Society? I mean, the floor is open,
I would nothing in particular for just. I mean, the Sacramento Aquarium Society is one of the longest tenured aquarium societies in the States. We were founded in 1952. And incorporated is somewhere in the 60s. I don't know the exact year. We have never, there are a lot of clubs that have been around as long, if not longer, but we have never not been together as a club. We've never broken up and then reformed or anything to that nature. I highly recommend to everybody to find a club. If you don't have a club, make a club. Even if that club is you and one other person getting together in your garage, drinking some beers, talking about fish. Make a club. I have never found more things, or not the right wording, but I have never found a better sense of knowledge and community than I have in my club since I joined. I've had friends, I have buddies, I have people that I have hobbies, other hobbies and things I do and stuff like that, but nothing that has enriched my life in the same way as my fish club has. Every month I get to learn so much new stuff and be introduced to such amazing new facts about the world. I get to learn about new parts of the world. I've had speakers talk to me about the back streams of Australia and creeks and rivers of the Congo. And I've watched videos of people swimming in the lakes of East Africa and people streaming from the Amazon River. And we have a guy who just specializes in fish of North America. I mean, he likes native fish, but he can talk my ear off about these native fish and has such passion over a little fish this big. It's just this little silver thing that I would have not even looked twice at in my back creek growing up. But to him, it's the miracle fish. And you don't find that kind of stuff just anywhere.
Right.
But I find it every day in my club from somebody over some fish, things you would have overlooked. So go find a club, because you know what? There'll be somebody else that has the same fascination with some little fish that you have a fascination with. Because there's always somebody else out there. Because you know what? I like puffer fish. And you know what? I found somebody else in my club that likes my puffer fish more than I like my puffer fish. So much that she's got 3 of my puffer fish. And guess what we talk about all the time? Puffer fish. Puffer fish. What'd your puffer fish do today? My puffer fish did this. All the time. And that's what the club is about, is that knowledge and that passion and that compassion. And you said you got a beta club kind of forming up. Great. You know what comes from after betas? Keelyfish. And after keelyfish, woodcats. And after woodcats, clown knives. And after clown knives, clownfish. And before you know it, they're gateway drugs. I'm telling you. You take one, it's worth it. Even if you're not into betas, it's help somebody else find their passion. It's so this year's been so hard without meetings. I mean, that's probably been the hardest part of COVID for me, because I've been working the whole time. I'm a frontline worker, so I never got to skip a beat when it came to working. So I haven't had that disconnect when it comes to working. My club has by far been the hardest part for me. And so everybody go find a club. Go, even if you have to drive. We have people that drive 2 hours for our meetings. 2.5 hours. There's one family. I mean, I don't know how much you know our area, but we're in Sacramento. We have a family that drives down from Tahoe every month for our meetings. That's 2.5 hours. That's how much they love our meetings.
And I can understand, because of how I feel about the about the hobby. I can understand.
Right.
I really
Yeah.
can.
It's it's there's something about the companionship that comes for a mutual love that can't be found or replicated any other way. And when you get, and our average attendance at a meeting is 80 people.
Mm,
So when you get that many people in a room that are all about the same basic thing, it's awesome. There's always somebody to talk to. And there's always 20 people that are new. There's always new faces. It's awesome. So if you have access to a club, even if they're not into the precise thing that you're into, go make some friends. It's worth it. Definitely worth it. And if there
most
isn't one in existence, make one. Because all it takes is two.
most definitely, most definitely.
So yeah,
Damian Markham. So he'll be driving up to Cambria. It's about 5 or 6 hours.
Defiantly worth it.
But yeah, man, thank you so very much. Um, this was very enlightening to say the least, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I mean, and it was every bit of what I thought it would be, and it looks as though that everybody in the chat really enjoyed it also. Um, thank you very much, man. And anytime you have any updates, big news that you want to get out beyond, Sacramento, for all of us to be able to possibly participate in some things y'all may have going on, man, hit me up.
Oh, absolutely. So we are going forward. Even our live meetings, we're going to be streaming them. So our speakers will be streamed. Our auctions will be streamed. So even if you're not able to watch them live, the replays will be up. If it's okay with our speakers replays will be up. If not, our auctions will be up. So you'll be able to see what what you're missing if you lived here, what you could be be part of. Our auctions are usually 2+ hours long with a couple hundred items. So you'll be able to see what deals you're missing by not living in Sacramento for sure. And then we hope to do several more several more tours of members stuff and expand beyond just our local region. We have several people that did not feel comfortable doing tours, like Pam Chin, for example, during COVID, that we hope to get out and do tours of now that things are open. So we should have several more videos of those types coming soon, as well as tours of all our local stores and partners. We're trying to get some possible tours with our business partners. We're reaching out to several of our sponsors to see if we can't go and maybe do some tours of their facilities. We work with Hydor and Bay Area brand foods and stuff like that. So hopefully we have some more stuff coming that way too, because like I said before, I'm really trying to expand what we do beyond just a meeting once a month. So everything that we can do to keep us growing, not only as a club but as a hobby, is my definite goal. And so I definitely encourage everybody, go find the Sacramento Aquarium Society Facebook page and our discussion group. We always just send out information through both of those for non-members. If you want to be a member, just go to sacramentoaquariumsociety.info or .com. Both of them lead to the same place. It's $20 a year to become a member, and you get there'll be some gateway information coming soon, possibly videos that we have to put behind a paywall because of how the speakers want to be when it comes to their content. And then you can get a free towel if you're okay. I got a towel. See the towel. Where's my camera? And then if you become a member, you get a free towel. And then same with the YouTube. Go look up Sacramento Aquarium Society and subscribe so that you can get alerts when we post for the new monthly meetings and everything. So if you're interested in seeing those, I know that is Big Tank Hank here found me was by attending one of our meetings. Yep, through the Keelyfish guy. Ryan, who, Ryan, the funny thing is Ryan is on our board, and Ryan is also on the Keelyfish Association board. And Ryan is actually my son's boss also. And so Ryan is actually somebody I talk to, like twice a week because he's on the board and everything. So that's how we work. It's we're all Kevin Bacon, right? We're all 5 degrees from each other somehow. So go find a club or build a club, and y'all go feed a fish. They need you.
Amen. Amen. Hey, I want you to hold on, till we get backstage when I turn the live off.
Sure, no
problem. All right, y'all. You know how I feel. Tell somebody you love them, man, and take care of those fish. We out.